Hi, my name is Greg Canty, and I'd like to welcome you to the Win Happy podcast. I love chatting to people from all walks of life about their lives and their careers, about the choices they make along the way to pursue their happiness, and what winning actually means to them. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chat about Mullane, the musician turned Mercedes-Benz General Manager. Liam's passion is music, and despite his very best efforts, he realised that the life of a musician playing original material was not going to sustain him, and he had to choose a different path. With a new focus, this talented lead guitarist became a leading salesman, and after 22 years in the motor trade, he's now the General Manager of Mercedes-Benz in Cork. He chatted about his career path, the ups and downs, the buzz of being a successful salesman, how to close a sale, the special role of cars in our lives, QTR, and why the music never ever stops. Let's hear from Liam. Liam Mullane, a huge welcome to the Win Happy podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So, let's get down to it, Liam. Let's get down to it. The Cork Chamber annual dinner, first Friday of February. And we're all there in our black and whites. And of course, the usual, you pick up the list and you see, okay, what table am I going to be at and who am I going to be sitting next to? And let's be practical about it. The tickets for this thing are fairly hefty. You go along, you think, maybe we'll do a bit of business here or whatever, and you go down there, and so sitting next to you is Liam Mullane and your buddy. What's your buddy's name?
Oh, it's Ken Daly.
Yeah, Ken Daly. And
yeah,
so okay, we're not going to be doing any business with this gang, and vice versa. So we're kind of doing the polite thing at the table and shaking hands and how's it going, and we all listen to the speeches, and before you know it, the starters come out and the drinks, and eventually we started chatting. And I must admit, I've never been kicking myself so much at the end of a night thinking, why was I ignoring this guy for so long? Or maybe not ignoring, I wasn't rude, but why didn't we jump in and discover all of the things that we discovered eventually about each other at the very, very beginning? And the night would have been an awful lot better.
Yeah, I would probably be the same as you. You go to these events not expecting to have a connection or a click with someone next to you. And I actually was, as I was saying, I am deaf in my right ear. I intentionally put Ken to my left so that I could chat to him all night. I ended up talking to you all night on my right. And it was the most pleasurable dinner event that I've ever been to. And you're right. I suppose the misconceptions of these things being dull can sometimes be broken.
And when it comes to doing business, and all will be revealed fairly soon. But I didn't buy an expensive car, and you didn't engage us, for PR or digital marketing or anything like that. But we'll get into it. Yeah. The question I ask everyone is, who the hell are you and where did you come from?
So I'm Liam Mullane. I come from outside a little village called Doneraile in North Cork. We would have grown up at the foothills of the Ballahora Mountains. Ballahora Hills, really, but they were mountains when I was young. And 1980, that was when I was born. With a very, very nice, modest, family-driven childhood. I was the youngest of four siblings. Started learning music at a young age, and that took me gigging in my late teens, well, all through my teens, and it brought me to Cork City. Came to Cork City as a musician. I would probably say, failed. We all thought we'd be rock stars. The realization was, maybe I'm just a guy from Doneraile who strums a guitar. And I said I need to change path a little bit, which would be a longer story of why I changed path. But then I went job hopping for a while, and security man in Marks and Spencer's in Cork City. I was living in Cork City, humbled into another job, which was terrible, but it was selling anything you could possibly find out of a bag, door to door. Stuck that out for a little bit, and then just the ad came up. I realized I was really good at sales, and that job really taught you the hard way how to sell, and fell into car sales. And I've been in the motor trade ever since. So 22 or 3 years I'm in the motor trade now, selling cars in many garages and dealerships all around Cork City. Toyota, Peugeot, Fiat, Citroen, then used car dealerships, then more premium like Audi, and then to Mercedes. Came into Mercedes 10 years ago as a salesperson, and then 4.5 years later became the sales manager. And then about another 4.5 years later became the general manager, and the general manager here now 2 years this May. It's a quick overview.
Good man. Well, thanks a million for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Oh, likewise. See you next time.
Yeah, exactly. Your mum and dad, what do they do?
So my mum and dad, where I grew up, there was this, I'd call it an old folks home at the foothills of the Bellahowers. It used to be a hospital for TB. So they built it up there for the clean air and for the fresh air for the patients. And then, when TB passed, the government turned it into an old folks home. And then my mother worked there. It's like a general assistant to the nurses. My father worked there as a general handyman, would drive the tractor around and do stuff. They both were there. I'd like to tell you I know the amount of years, but most of their working lives. And they both retired out of there. That was about 2.5 miles from my house.
Yeah. And were you living in the country or in the village?
Yeah. No, in the country. So I had a field to my left and a field to my right, and cows to the left and sheep to the right. And up behind me was a castle, Spencer's Castle. And then up in front of us was the mountains. And I was I'm the youngest by 6 years. So, when they were in their teens, I was quite younger. So I kind of liked to wander and explore nature. And we'd spend a lot of time at other places, but I really enjoyed my own space as well. And when I got a little older, I used to cycle up to the mountains and I'd just take a breath. And it's something I still do today. I really kind of recharge myself on my own. Yeah, back those days, the roads were so quiet. We used to play soccer on the road. And they were, pardon me.
You're good. Someone wants to buy a car. You're okay.
No, it's okay. We grew up in the country. I really thought it was a great childhood. And I'd like to move back to the country again at some stage.
I was going to ask you the question, like, given a choice, house in the country for a young person growing up, or plonk in the middle of suburbia in a housing estate with people left and right, your buddies around the corner?
I suppose I'd probably go with both. You got young kids, you got a nice estate, you got good neighbours. I think when you're trying to figure this big old bad world out, you can get some good support from people around you. I think an estate can be quite good. But I think I would like to then move, like I'm mid-40s now, so it's definitely on the cards now that my smallie is getting older, that we'd be looking back to the country, more quieter, slower pace. So I would actually recommend both. I think if you live in the country your whole life, you're probably going to be a bit secluded. Yeah. And I think if you're in the city or the housing estate your whole life, I think you're missing out on what the country has to offer.
And tell me the conversations around the kitchen table, around dinner time. What used to chat about?
When we were younger?
Yeah.
My memories when I'm really young would be putting on like play in the evening. I remember I used to play a record, and I used to make everyone come in and listen to me being a DJ. I don't know what age it was, but I was young. And they'd turn off the light and be playing. I used to remember even playing Brendan Grace because it was my mother's records, not mine. And I remember we never spoke about anything, I felt, I suppose, current affairs. I just remember having fun without having anything. Our house was a very, very, very old house. So we, as all old houses in the country, there was no internal plumbing, there's no internal toilet, all that. And as I grew up, I got to it. I can remember the outdoor toilet. I remember it coming indoors, and I can remember the house growing. And it's still the same house that my mother now lives in. My father passed away. And it was like my mother, the louder the better, the more fun. Children should be loud. Children should be dirty. Children should have scratched knees. And the more of that, the better. And that's how I felt. And that's how I feel my memories were growing up. Not having much, but having everything at the same time.
Do you think it gave your mum and dad a bit of wisdom working with all of these old folks? And I presume a lot of them would have been, getting very close to the end of their lives, and knowing that some of them wouldn't have been well. I presume a lot of them mightn't have been well. Do you think that gave them a perspective on life that they would have shared with you?
I think it would have given them a live in the moment more aspect, that they're seeing people at the end of their lives. And Heather side would have had a lot of people that their families didn't visit. And I think it would have definitely made them think that family is what all that matters, and put that first rather than career, and other aspects. If your kids or grandkids are around you, you're okay. Because I think what they maybe not learned, maybe wisdom from them, and I hope I'm not speaking ill of my parents by saying that, but I think they would have seen loneliness and how dreadful that is. And I worked there myself when I was about 16. I did 2 summers. And yeah, there's people in there who haven't seen their family in 20 years and there's people in there who shouldn't have been in there, in my humble opinion. So, when I wanted to play the radio or when I wanted to do a play, I always felt that I was given that time. I was never told, shut up and get out and give us a bit of space. I think that was, as I said, the louder the better. And my father would have been slightly different. Shut up. But yeah, seeing people grow old on their own for whatever reason, I think that was what they did not ever want to happen.
That was a strange summer job for you to have. How did you find it?
So I did two summers. One summer was in the laundry, which was fine. You're just working there with other people. I did do an assistant in the wards the other summer, and it was excellent for me that people of that age, when I'm so young, are funny, witty. I used to have so much fun with them. And all I used to do was just stand there and help, But sometimes I'd feed, and I would feed them. And it gave me a lot of satisfaction to be the person who would be around that person and probably be the only person they'd see that day. And entertaining, when someone would have a crazy story, I just sit down and listen and maybe engage in the banter. And it suited my personality. I like to help people. I like to see other people do well in life. I like to reflect through other people's success. And when I'm helping older people have a good day, I got a great satisfaction out of that as well.
Of course you would. Before we started recording, I was telling you I was listening to a podcast, and it was Richard Marx, the singer, the artist with some really, really wonderful songs, and Paul Stanley of the rock band Kiss.
Yeah.
And Paul Stanley would have been one of my kind of early legends from a music point of view. And to hear him having a conversation with Richard Marx about, will they tour again? And he had an acronym which was QTR.
QTR?
Yeah, and within Kiss and himself and Gene Simmons and their manager, they always talk about QTR. And that was quality time remaining. Yeah, and
excellent.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, God Almighty, did you ever think you would hear these rock gods? One of these people, all of those big, huge songs that they had, and talking about QTR. It's like, oh my God, we're all getting old, Liam.
Yeah. It's creeping up on all of us. When you see your rock stars and your idols turning into old people and sadly passing away, you go, oh no.
Yeah. Talk to me about the music. What turned you on to music to begin with?
my youngest memories were singing in the car as my parents drove around, all four of us in the back. And I always used to sing the guitar parts because I always thought I could sound like a guitar. And we just sang in the car, and it used to drive my father nuts. But it was, again, brilliant. So that was tipping away. And then I was in school. I was in a fifth class, I believe. So I was about 11. And we just had this after hours kind of a computer class, and there was a keyboard there. And I remember just playing it. It's just the simplest thing in the world. I'm just playing melodies. And we had a tin whistle classes every Christian Brothers school would, the very vital part of your childhood tuition, learn how to play the tin whistle. And we would have had, I remember I think it was an Elvis Presley song. And we had to learn a bar of it. And I came in the next day and I played the whole song. And it was just something I was just doing. So my school teacher at the time, he said to my parents, I think you should get him music lessons. So I went, and because I was playing the keyboard, they sent me to this keyboard piano teacher in Doneraile Town. And I didn't take to it. And I used to drive him kind of mad because he'd asked me to do something I just wouldn't have it done for the next week. And it kind of filtered away. And then my aunt on my father's side and her husband and their family, the Heavers in England, very, very close to us, he bought one of his sons, like an old Spanish nylon string guitar. Son would have been in his probably 30s or 20s, and he never played it. So they bought my father's, where he grew up, home in Buttevant, and they said, would you be interested in that? And I said, yeah, I'd love to have it, as a free guitar when you're 11, 12 years old. And I played it, and the first thing I played was Stand By Me. Do, 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 dum. So I was like, oh, this is okay. And school play came up in sixth class. And I didn't have any knowledge of tuning a guitar or anything. I just do, 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 do. And I remember the school play, and we had to play these songs, and I knew the basic chord, and I played it, and it was so out of tune. The teacher came up with his hand on the guitar and went, that's enough for now, Liam. That's enough. So it was a rocky start, to say the best. And then my brother, who at that stage, later on, maybe 13, so he was living next door. He was older than me, and he rented out the house. And the guy who moved in played guitar. And I was up there one evening, and he had a beautiful 12-string guitar, and he played a G chord. And I said, can you show me how to do that? And he went, sure. And I played a G chord, and just this tuning fork resonated in my soul. Oh my God. And I ran out the door, and I ran down to because we were right next door to my mother, and went, look what I can do. And I played a G chord. And unlike the piano, I was hooked. And I learned it, and I learned it more. I taught myself. We didn't do the lessons with the guitar. There wasn't. My neighbor taught me the basics, but he was just a very basic. He was amazing to me at the time. And so I fell in love with the guitar. And then I wanted a proper guitar. I had my Spanish, and I actually sold it for £8. And I wish I didn't. My nylon string guitar. Sold it to a friend in school. So I was in secondary school at this stage, maybe 14. And I wanted an electric. And again, we were humble beginnings. And something that touched me so much at the time, and still does to this day. So my uncle on my father's side passed away from cancer when I was about 7. And he was this amazing button accordion player. And that's the only musical link in my family, was my uncle. I never got to appreciate him. I don't have any recordings of him, which is a pity. He didn't play the piano accordion. He played the button accordion, which I'm told is superior, more difficult. So my father had this accordion. She's brother's accordion. So to fund an electric guitar, he sold the accordion to buy me my first guitar, which was in Pro Musica in Cork City. At the time, it didn't dawn on me what the magnitude of that sacrifice. But later in life, I actually tried to track it down maybe 10 years ago. I found out who he sold it to, and I couldn't go any further because I wanted to buy it back from him. Never got the chance. It was sold to someone out by Macroom. So I got my electric guitar, and then I was 13, going on 14, and I formed my first band, a two-piece called Double Impact. I was a big Jean-Claude Van Damme fan at the time. And my brother's wife, previous wife, it was her younger brother, same age as me, Clifton. We formed a two-piece together, and I've got pictures of us busking at about 13 years of age. And then we decided we needed a drummer. We're going to take on the world. And we got a drummer, and it was 1994. So it was April. So I was either 14 or just turning 14. And we have a video of that gig, and that was our first ever gig. And then we called that band Illusion. So we had that band, and that 14, 15, and we were too young. We obviously couldn't, you wouldn't be allowed to do it today, you know, we're kids playing in pubs. So our parents would have to drive us and sit there every night. And again, every weekend that we gigged, they gave it up, and we just throw the gear into the back trailer and drive to the gigs. And every money we made from every gig went back into buying more gear. And we actually grew it, and we grew it to, we were 15 and 16. We turned into we had another drummer and we had another bass player. We turned into a four-piece, and it went to about 18 years of age. And there's another band in Clifton's local town, which is called Juices Wild, and Clifton went with them. So we have the gear. I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to study sound engineering and music technology. And because music was my world, I said, if I can't play, at least I can be an engineer. If I got my hand cut off or broke it or whatever. So it was a private college. It was in Naas. It's called Poppy Hill School of Recording. So I had half of the gear from the band. So I needed to raise the other half of the tuition fees. So I took a year out. It was 98. And I got a job in Doneraile in a steel works factory, small little thing, making like brass surrounds for fireplaces. And I worked there Monday to Friday and a Saturday, if it was available. And then I needed more. So then I used to work Friday nights in a bar in a two-pot house called the Hazel Tree, and it was a country western venue, and you see all the greats of the country western scene. And I met Joe Dolan, and how short he was. I couldn't believe how small of a man he was, and I really enjoyed there. And then I used to also work in a hotel just up the road, Springford Hall, as a night porter. And at the time I had 3 jobs, and it was all to fund go to college. So I sold a bit of gear, got the money together, bought a motorbike so I could travel. And off I went to college on my motorbike in Naas. No motorway, driving through every town you could get in late October, early November for college. I remember putting on so much clothes to get to where I needed to be. And I had a little 125cc motorbike that would barely do 50, 55 miles an hour. And I used to tuck in behind trucks because I might get to 58 or 60 and tail them up the motorway and or the roads. And I'd get to about Urlingford and my hands wouldn't work anymore from the cold. So I used to pull in and put my hands on the exhausts. And it's funny to this is what I did every single week to get to college, to do it. And I moved out of home and I stayed up there. And now I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. My mother, father, supported me every single week as well to do it. But it was far from an easy lifestyle to get to do that. I got, and then I finished that while gigging, and I joined another band while I was there just to get me through. And then when I actually came out of it, Juices Wild, the same band, called me. Would you like to join us? And I was like, hell yeah. And I loved it. I loved it. It was a very good time for me. I made no money, nothing, but we gigged all over Ireland, every town, every county. We also gigged in London every 6 weeks, and I loved that. I felt I was just in my happy place. And then about a year and a half or so later, I left that band and I joined another band, 00. And I had a partner, and then we had a child, and then she became my ex-partner. And that kind of was a change for me then, because I could no longer travel around everywhere for nothing and sleep in my mother's couch or whatever. So I had to buy a car, and like my sister's in Chicago, and she's lived there since '98. There's, it's a fair opportunity for me to go there. But this was then my turning point. Up until that point, my life was music. And then it was a decision time.
In terms of the music, what kind of music were you playing?
Mainly rock, bit of pop, mainly rock pop. We go heavy, AC/DC, Metallica, nothing beyond that. Nothing where the vocals start growling, nothing that heavy. And I still play to this day.
Yeah. What are your favorite songs to play?
I love playing solos for Brian May and Gary Moore. I love to sit down and just play melodic solos. Gary Moore, Brian May, Steve Lukather, looking for big old-fashioned rock and roll, Billy Gibbons, Angus Young. When I sit down most evenings and play, a lot of time I just play. I don't actually play songs. I mightn't even plug the electric guitar in. But there's something very holistic and very recharging about a guitar.
Your love of songs and how we actually hear things. It's funny, you obviously met Deirdre that night at Chamber, yes. And, I listen to something and I go, oh my God almighty, I'm waiting for the solo. I'm not even sure if she would hear a solo. When you listen to music as a young person, you had that interest in the guitar. Would you hear songs or would you hear the solo that's in the songs?
Oh, it's all about the guitar for me. Yeah, especially at a young age, Slash. There had to be Slash. I listened to Guns N' Roses. I burned out Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 and Appetite for Destruction. And if the song didn't have a solo, I probably wasn't interested in it. Yeah.
I was listening to Final Cut at the weekend, the Pink Floyd album that came after The Wall. And Mark, my future son-in-law, he was with me and he does appreciate music. And I was explaining to him about Pink Floyd and Roger Waters and David Gilmour and all that kind of thing. And I was saying to him that The Wall was the first big album, really, that was nearly a Roger Waters album. Of course, you've got the songs on that album, like Comfortably Numb and all that kind of thing, with David Gilmour playing these incredible solos. And I was saying to him then that for the Final Cut, the album that followed that one, that was really nearly 100% Roger Waters. And I hadn't listened to it in a while, and suddenly I'm playing it again. And oh my God, the most beautiful guitar solos in it from start to finish. Yeah. And like that, listening to them, the minute those solos started, I knew exactly where every single solo was going. But yet then, when I listen to music, a lot of the time I don't hear the words. And I could be listening to a song for years and years, and Deirdre would say, oh my God, that's such a lovely song. And I never realised it was so sad. And I'm like, I've been listening to that for years. I never knew what it was about.
Yeah. I would have been the same. I think it's only later that I would have been listening to the lyrics and finding out. But there's so many songs that you would think are very poppy, happy love songs that are extremely depressing songs when you listen to the actual words. Like, Every Breath You Take. Everything that's a love song. It's a stalker song. And it's only when if you actually just took a transcript and read it, you'd be like, whoa, Sting is insane. But I do think, and I try to write songs as well, but I also do think a great song isn't too obvious with its meaning. I think it's like a great painting, You get your first reaction, but there needs to be layers to it. And if you can listen to the song 10 times and then on the 10th time you get, oh my God, I never got that from it before. That's where I think the genius is.
Tell me about the life of a salesman.
Roller coaster is one word. So sales, I don't think I know anyone in the sales industry who grew up with, I want to be a salesman. I think it's people fall in and you either swim or you sink. And it was the same for me. I had my job as a security man in Marks and Spencer's, and I needed something. And I was 22, I think. And I saw an advert for sales, but trainee manager. And that's what I was interested in, was trainee management. I wanted a career. So I went for the job. It turns out it was, this kind of crazy pyramid kind of a thing where you sell crap out of a bag and the turnover is crazy. And it was something I did very short term, but they did teach you how to sell, and they taught you law of averages, and they taught you closing skills. They taught you negotiating because they had to. And if you stuck it out long enough, you picked up an awful lot. And I hated it, and I worked stupid hours. But I realized I'm actually really good at this. I kind of would have thought he's got the gift of the gab, that old Irish tongue and all that. But it turns out that I was able to read people, and I was able to mirror people, and I was able to do things that they teach you that I never realized I would have done. So when I was leaving that, it was only in the 6 months, and it was actually my mother sent me an advert for Grandin car sales, looking for cars people. I said, oh, I'll do that. And I went in because I said, I love cars, and I'm a petrol head since I'm a child, and I'm really good at sales. So let's see how that works out. And I went in, and it just clicked. And I remember my first sale, and and I think it's lovely to remember your first sale. All these thousands of cars later, it was a gentleman. I don't remember his name, but I remember the car. Most people in the trade will say that as well. They remember people by their cars. And he bought a red Alfa Romeo 156 with a big long tow bar sticking out the back of it. And I remember I did my training, and I did my pitch, and I did a test drive, and I said I did some pathetic attempt at closing the deal, and he said, okay, I'll take it. And my response was, really? And he went, yeah, okay. And that was my first ever car sale, and I was there only a few days, because I think they said the average is you got to be a few weeks before anyone sells a car, and I sold it quickly, and that was it. I was hooked. Because when someone says to you, yes, and we'll say you win that negotiation, that's a drug. You get this hit of dopamine. And the only reason I ever stayed in sales, no matter even 20 years later, when I make a sale, the hairs stand on my arm. It's like a little win. And it's those highs. Again, it's like a drug. They make up for the horrible lows when you haven't sold a car for a week or 2 weeks, and you're like, what have I done with my life? Every mistake I've made. Then someone comes in and you sell them a car and you're going, yes, I'm back. And that is sales. That's the life of a salesman. Tremendous highs and horrific lows.
Give me a good closing tip.
I got this one from reading the book. I've read many sales books, but The Wolf of Wall Street, actually. So after the movie came out, I got the book. And there's a couple of good tips in that, actually. Straight line selling is one of them, and I've adopted it. But his closing line was, sound fair enough. And I was like, I wonder will that work? And you say it. And it's a difficult one to say no to as a customer. But see, the skill in selling, and why I love selling, is an awful lot of psychology in it. And there's an awful lot of skill. And you can't just rock up and say, sound fair enough. You sound like an insane person. But if you put in the time and you don't sell, you solve a problem. If you just want to flog an item, fair enough, you'll do it every now and again, but you've built no relationships and you won't last. It's the people who listen to the customer and realize they need help. Whatever that is, they need a bigger car, they're going to have another baby, they have a bad back, they need a Jeep. They have a high lifestyle. You can't go to the golf club in an old car. My old car exploded, I need a cheap car. Whatever that problem is, you listen, and if you solve it, you're going to help somebody. You're going to make the sale, but you've helped somebody, you've built a relationship. So when you've done all that correctly every single time, you've listened to people, at the end, to answer your question, you go, so Greg, it's the right price? Yeah. It's the right height? Yeah. It's the right color? Do you want it? Yeah. The monthly payments are okay? Yeah. So I think this is the right car for you. Will you box it up for you? Sound fair enough? That's about Wall Street close.
Okay, I'll take two. I must admit that as an accountant who just was interested in numbers, and I was booking bands at one point. I might have told you this. I might have told you this a long time ago. And like that, I was trying to make them professional and have a little pack that you could send to venue owners with their bit of merchandise and all that kind of business. And pre-internet, 100%. You send the pack and then you'd get on the phone a few days later. Did you get the pack and all that kind of thing? I got such a kick out of booking gigs with them.
Yeah,
it really
you made the sale.
Yeah. And then, of course, you up the ante and, how much would you sell the band in for, and we were getting good money and all that kind of thing. And that cycle that you were talking about, of course, all the money from the gigs went into better gear. And the thing with all of the bands, they all wanted better gear all of the time. Yeah. So that was a bit of a big catch-22 or a cycle that you never came out of. They always needed more gear and there was something better.
Yeah.
But there is a win. Nearly everyone I talk to, like you're on the Win Happy podcast.
Yeah.
You need to win. Now, you want to do that in a fulfilling way where you're enjoying it and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you could be selling anything and you want that process to be enjoyable. Everyone loves landing a deal. It is a buzz. And even the people who would think they're not salespeople at all, of course, they're selling all of the time. And that's just part of it.
It is. Even my daughter, can I have chocolate? No. Why? And she talks around me. She's just made a sale.
Yeah. It's a negotiation, isn't it?
It is. And as you said, the win happy, like the win is important, but it's when you both win, you and your customer. When you both win, that's when, we could make a sale online. I get nothing off that. That's just an e-commerce transaction.
Yeah.
But when you get to know the person you're dealing with, and when you get to know their needs, and when they hit you hard with a low figure, and you go, okay, let's, I knew a guy, and what he always used to say when you be in sales, and I want 20,000 for the car, and then they say, I give you 15, and you have to go into your manager, and he always used to go, it's time for the dance. and it is, and it's nothing to be taken personal with. You are now going into a negotiation phase where both of you want to get to the same place, but who's going to get there where you need to be? And all the best negotiations are when both people win. Now, that doesn't mean you win hugely over the other person, but the best negotiations are when it's win-win.
Have you ever been on holidays in Turkey?
No.
And like that, you go to the markets or whatever, or the regular shops, or everything is an auction, and they're going to give you a stupid price. And if you pay that, everyone is going to break their asses laughing at you because no one pays that price. Yeah. So it's the biggest pain in the backside if you actually want to buy that thing, because you have to do this. And sometimes you're up for it. Of course you are. And then, of course, you do the little thing where you have to walk away and they go, oh, please, sir, come back. And oh, my God almighty. It's just pain beyond belief.
It's exhausting.
Sometimes I just need this to be straightforward. Listen, can I just buy this and whatever? The psychology of cars.
Yes.
And the importance of cars in their lives. Some people are very functional with them and some people it's a big deal. Which way do most people lean when it comes to cars?
Depends on which brand, I would say. If you pick a brand, you'll almost know your customer. So I sold Toyotas for a year, and that's a person looking for a functional tool. They have a color, they might have a spec, but the emotion was lower. They thought with their head rather than their heart. You get to more luxury side of tables like Mercedes-Benz, these people buy with their heart. And I've worked on both sides, and even I've done a used garage. The people who come to buy a luxury item do so because they love that item. It makes them feel good. It makes their day better. And I'm lucky enough to drive a Mercedes-Benz because I work for Mercedes-Benz in Cork. And at the end of my day, if it's a really bad day and the car to the Mercedes at the end of the day, I get a lovely feeling I wouldn't have gotten when I was selling Toyotas. So I don't think you could say what type of people it is. I think it's the brand will determine the buyer. So somebody who's really into their cars may not buy a certain brand. And some people who see it as a tool to get me home to work wouldn't dare buy something as expensive as a Mercedes. And as a salesperson, you need to mirror those people and see what they need. And I have people who buy Mercedes-Benz for a long time, and it is their drug. They don't drink, they don't smoke. The car, they open the curtains and they see it there, and it just gives them that hit. And I remember coming back from a long flight, and I had a lovely car a couple of years ago, It was an EQE SUV, gorgeous car. I came back in the airport and I had a 3-hour drive down from Dublin and I was exhausted. I saw the car and I went, it's not so bad. And I think that's the magic of a car, is that if you love it, it's not a car anymore.
Yeah. And the Mercedes-Benz customer, are they unlikely to move to another brand, are they? From your experience?
Unlikely, but it could happen. In anything, these are machines. You can have a machine that doesn't suit you. You can have a tool that doesn't suit you, and you might try something else. But our customer loyalty would be extremely high. And that would be that's one of the most important things we do here at Mercedes Cork, is the loyalty of our people. The average price of this car is extremely high. The pool of people you would sell to would be smaller. So we need them more than they need us. And we mind them and we look after them. And their love for the brand equals our own.
In terms of the psychology of it, I know you went through this as well as we did, that lovely crash that came after the Celtic Tiger.
Yeah.
And a few years before that, I packed up my full-time job where there was a company car. We needed something very functional because we were dragging a lot of stuff around with us. So we got a second-hand Santa Fe Jeep. It did us fine. Then we were at the point of buying a new one. Did it fine. And I swear to God, Liam, we were absolutely breaking our asses. It was really difficult to keep the show on the road, but we did. And we made the mistake of going through the door in one of the Johnson & Perrott garages and seeing the brand new Jaguar. And
it spoke to you.
It did, very, very loudly, very, very loudly. And had a quick conversation. I realized it was cheaper than what I thought it would have been. And the weird thing, even though you couldn't get a loan for anything in those days, but you could buy a car, however they worked it. So, and that feeling you're describing, so we're going into work earlier. I remember having a good conversation with Louis Copeland, and it was about the recession, and he had seen a lot of them. And he said, roll the sleeves up, get stuck in, have a great week, go into work earlier, work later, just burst your balls, more or less.
Yeah.
But for me, the reward, accountants, I'm sure you've heard your accountants talking about this, for every debit, there has to be a corresponding credit.
Yeah.
The credit for me for all of that hardcore work was sitting into that beautiful car, going to work, and sitting into it, coming home, exactly the same that you described. And that brand in particular, and I think we definitely had that conversation the night we were chatting, it's nearly become part of me in a way that I can't fully explain to you. And if you were to say, okay, you're driving for a few years, you're thinking of changing, I'd find it very difficult to move away from that brand, because in a very stupid way, in a way that I can't rationalize, it's become part of me.
Yeah.
And you probably understand that better than anyone.
Yeah. It's no longer a car. It's an extension of you. The car personality reflects you. Jaguar will be very sporty, very, especially when they redesigned them, they started to get very angry looking, very aggressive looking. And you're not going to get that from another brand. That look, that feel, you sit in it, you kind of turn it to James Bond a little bit, and you get that feeling. And it's the feeling that you can't put money on, that to quantize, how it makes you feel. And when you sit in that car and you turn it on, you grab that steering wheel, you can buy anything that will get you anywhere. But how does it make you feel? And Jaguar makes you feel good, and it's worth it.
It's a trap.
they designed them too well.
Yeah. In a way, the brand has you trapped. A bit like your football team, you'll never move away from it, but
you associate with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it is part of you. Who do you follow, Liverpool or United? As Irish people, what the hell difference does it mean? But it's an association with an ideology that you link with. And Jaguar is yours. Other people will be Audi, BMW,
So for all of the sales teams out there,
Yeah.
It's some bad drug when you know your customer is addicted to that thing that you're selling.
Yes. The thing, though, is never to be complacent.
Yeah.
Because that customer can buy that anywhere. So even though they're addicted to your product, you're not the only one selling that product. And especially today with the high cost of living, I think it's more important than ever that the win-win negotiation is where you need to be.
Yeah. So you've been through the A to Z of car sales, and now you're managing the GM of Mercedes-Benz in Cork. It's a superior product. You've got a lot of loyal customers who are locked into the brand in the same way I would be with Jaguar. How do you avoid everyone that's associated with that brand getting arrogant and not letting the bar drop for those customers?
That's a good question. It's 3 words that sound like a cliche, but it's striving for perfection. So I'm delighted to be part of this as well. Mercedes-Benz Dealer of the Year, 2020, 21, 22. And to do that, you don't just sell cars, Our after-sales team, who likes to go in and pay, 1,000 euros for your service and say, that was lovely? Nobody. It's very easy to have somebody have a bad experience because you're kind of ice skating uphill. When you're buying a car, that's lovely. But when you're coming in then, that same car that you have to pay money to fix. So what we have adopted, and always have, customer-centric, customer first. Whatever the customer wants or needs within, I suppose, reality that we can do, we do. And we argue internally day by day with ourselves by saying, well, that's not 5-star. The customer doesn't see this, Like, customer, I can't get my car down today, but I have nowhere to go. Somebody dropped that person home. We need to get this person, So it's that everyone here believes that the customer should have the best experience possible. Not just me or the managers, but the valeters, the sales, the after sales. Like, to come here and choose us and to spend your hard-earned money here is something that we take great pride in. And you can spend your money anywhere. Ireland is a small island. And with motorways, you can go anywhere to get your work done. And we're not saying we're perfect, because God knows we're not. And some things are out of our control. But every single day, we come in here to be the best we can possibly be every single day. We go home tired every single day because we've pushed it to the maximum. And it does all sound like an absolute cliche, but I just had this conversation today with the after-sales manager, Paul, that the stress levels we're under is huge, but we put them on ourselves to be the best in the country. And I hope that our customers feel that. You don't see that front of the house, but by God, behind the scenes, yeah, the stress levels are extremely high to deliver that.
Who have you learned most from along the way? Where did your biggest lessons come from?
I suppose because I have kind of a split life of music and then professional career. In music, it was a gentleman that I haven't seen in years, and I hope he's okay. We meet these amazing people, and life moves on. And he lived in the house. He was renting a room from the lady who owned one of the bands that I played in. And I was 18 or 19, maybe 20. And I believe the fastest you could play guitar meant you were the best. And it's a pitfall of every young guitar player. And he came to me one day and he just said, less is more. You can say more with one note than you can say with 1,000. And he gave me a Gary Moore CD. I was still got the blues. And it was the best advice I was ever given for music, is to less is more. In my professional career, I was very lucky to work under some extremely motivating people. who I would have mirrored, and it served me very well. A great line that was given to me once was, always be the hardest working person in the room. And I think if you have that simple day-to-day work ethic, I think you'll naturally progress in life. Of course, you have to have the personality, you have to have the people skills to move through life. You know, nobody likes somebody who just causes trouble. But if you have a head on your shoulders and you can read the room, and you're the hardest working person in that room, you will get where you want to go eventually. I always believe personality number one, a work ethic number two. After that, once you've got a head on your shoulders, you can be taught anything. But sometimes you can't teach work ethic.
Is there a little bit between those two bits of advice? And I'm thinking now about, that Louis Copeland quote, just roll the sleeves up, get stuck in. And what he was saying is just, you need to dig deeper, just punch it out. And the one thing I felt is when we started kind of coming away from the recession, you were so used to having the foot rammed on the accelerator from a work point of view that you daren't take it off for a second because you thought, what that feeling of being very tough was like for a while. Mm-hmm. And now you were petrified. So your normal state of affairs from a work point of view as a self-employed person was to have your foot rammed on the accelerator. Now, if you think about what your guitar buddy said, and it was a little bit of less is more, and think about each note. If you were to apply that in a work context, what would that look like?
That's a very good observation. Yeah, it's delegate more, less is more. You don't have to be doing stuff every hour of the day to be seen to be busy. Yeah. You're so right. It's something that I do struggle with, especially the last few years. To do less is more. Maybe I should listen to my younger self, but I'm still stuck in the hardest working guy in the room mode.
And maybe to quote Paul Stanley with his QTR.
Yes.
Is that about doing a bit more of the helicopter stuff and delegating a little bit more, leaving the bits and pieces of wisdom and trying to be a better manager? I don't know. Because there was always that thing, isn't it? Be the last one to leave the office and all that kind of stuff. I'd feel guilty if you were the one knocking off early. And the weird thing with self-employment, by the way, you think you fall into this trap of, sure, we can take holidays anytime we want and all that kind of thing. Of course you can, but you end up taking less than everyone else. That just seems to go with the territory. What's happiness to you, Liam?
Happiness is when I'm with my family and when I'm content, when I know on my day off, I find it very hard to sit. And my wife would always say, will you just sit down? I can't, I've got to fix the light upstairs and I've got to do that thing in the garden, I always said. But at the end of that day, she mocks me because I do that old man sitting at the kitchen door looking at his lovely cut grass. I look out at what I've done. It gives me a lovely feeling of achievement. And I think happiness comes to me when I've done something in life. It doesn't have to be work, but if I've helped somebody or if I've achieved something, there's always the next thing, though, I suppose. Every step I've gotten to, which gave me great happiness, there's always another step. And the happiness will wear out and you have to go again. Someday I'll be happy with the step that I'm on.
Yeah, and the ball in the back of the net, that winning feeling, where does that come from now?
So it used to come from myself when I would achieve a target. Even though I still have, targets as a dealership, it's seeing other people achieve their targets now at this stage. So when I see guys who are, 30 and late 20s in sales like I was, and I see them struggle, when I coach them, which is something I love doing, bring them in, have a one-on-one, get to the root of why they're underperforming, help them come out of it, and then see them just knock it out of the park next month. It's just a great feeling.
What's the best life choice you ever made?
Sorry now for the long pause.
No. It's a big question. And where I'm coming from with that one is, a choice that changed the direction one way or the other. Like for me, When Happy is about making those big choices along the way when you realize who you are, what your life is all about, the things that'll make you happier. What's the biggest choice that nudged you in that direction?
Probably two stages. One, I was really young. I was playing in a band and we were trying to get this song into the charts. So every single penny we made went into the recording of it. And it went nowhere. It's like 40 or something. You got like the top 40 on Tina G or something for like a minute. It was nowhere. So I remember we were playing on Grafton Street in Golden Discs, promoting it. And you would think these people are doing really well. They're playing these, you're walking on Grafton Street and you see a live band promoting their new album and their single. And we went for food after, and I had no money, but I'm too proud then to ask for money. And they went into a restaurant and one of them was eating this kind of steak and I was staring at it. I didn't realize it was. And he said, would you like to finish it or would you like some? I went, no, geez, I'm fine. And when no one was looking, the ketchup and the mayonnaise sachets, I grabbed a couple of them and I went to the bathroom and I ate ketchup and mayonnaise just to feed the hunger. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I just went, I will never be this poor again.
Yeah. And
that was day one when I know I'm not going to be able to live on someone's couch or leech off somebody or whatever like that. It's not how I'm built. So that was a young day for me. And then that made me kind of go down the route of realizing I'm not actually that good. So let's get an actual job. And I love music more than it loves me, I think. And so that was fine. I went down my sales career, and which was very up and down because it was through the recession and tremendous lows. But we got married in 2017. So I've got my eldest daughter. She's 23 now. She's amazing. I've got a younger daughter who's 11. She's also amazing. I'm the luckiest dad in the world. We got married in 2017. And I just came home from the wedding. And I came back to work. And I just went, okay, it's no longer you, Liam. You have a family. Yes, okay. And it was just an okay moment. All right, okay, let's do this. And I went from having a job to having a career that day.
Yeah, it's a big moment, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. When you realize you're not just out in this world for yourself, you've people who depend on you. And that's a lovely feeling too, that they are depending on you and you depend on them and you're a team now. And my daughter she was 4 at the time, so it wasn't, I had a family, but there was just something about this wedding that solidified it. And I was like, okay, it's go time. That was 2017. I became a sales manager in 2019, became a general manager then in 2023.
Yeah. And the good news is there will come a point where you can go back to, well, okay, that stuff doesn't matter as much now and I can really do exactly what I want.
Exactly.
And I can do that for me again. I can do that just for me, or as the case may be. So I've one last job for you to do on this podcast.
Yeah.
I want to play the podcast out with some of your music. So I want you to describe it to me and tell me about it. Tell the listeners about this particular piece.
Okay. So I've wrote a lot of songs, but I did not release, but they're on Spotify, 5 of them. And I said I would play an original gig before I was 30. It didn't happen, but I did it before I was 40. And I wrote loads of songs. You picked 5. And one of them on them, I'm proud of, and I've other songs that I've written since that I'm also very proud of for other reasons. But I wrote one called The Slow Goodbye. and it's on Spotify. The name of the band is Noble Dogs, and The Slow Goodbye. So my father, I think it was 2015, 2016, got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And 2017, I got married, and he was getting advanced by then. And I'm delighted he was there. We were married in Portugal, and he was able to be there by 18, 19, 20. And then after that, obviously that only goes one way. So I think it was 2017 or 18, not sure the year. But it wasn't long after I found out that he was diagnosed. And I always write my best songs when something hits me, kind of like what you were saying about writing songs just for the sake of writing a song. They're always, crap in some sense, write song by numbers. But so I called it The Slow Goodbye. And I wrote it in as if it's my father in the first person speaking, or just, it's not even speaking because he can't really talk. It's how he feels. And the song isn't a very slow, acoustic folk song that you go, oh God, listen to this guy whining. It's actually quite a rock song, quite a punchy number. And again, you mightn't know what it's about until I would say it. You might just, is it a breakup song? Because the chorus is, this is the slow goodbye, And it's one of the songs that I wrote that I kind of like every bit of the words. I think they have meaning. I think when you listen to the verse, I hope you would get, I suppose, what I'm feeling at the time. And I suppose that's how I dealt with it. I put a pen to paper because I knew I was going to have a couple of bad years ahead of me. And it helped me process it. And I came out of that songwriting I wrote it quite fast, feeling exhilarated. I had a high. It's like a therapy session. So of all the bits that I've written, I like that because it's a song that means a lot to me.
Liam, thank you so much for sharing that with the listeners and with me. And let's hear the song. Take it easy.
Thank you, Greg. See you soon.
Feels like someone else's mind. I think it's mine from time to time. Losing grip on reality. What's happening to me? This is a slow goodbye. Don't you worry, I'll be alright. This is a slow
Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.